And welcome in to the Red Shirts Fantasy Football Podcast. Matthew Betz, John Helmkamp back for you all this evening for a brand new, fresh episode of the show. Unfortunately, Okada is not with us. Dude, he is just slaving away over at the network. It is draft week, of course, for him. They're prepping of getting ready for the NFL draft. He just got assigned to work on Michael Fabiano's fantasy projections model, which apparently, per Okada, is the only one who is capable of figuring this out. So Okada is slaving away,
and it's due tomorrow.
Computer. And it's due tomorrow. It's like he forgot to turn in his assignment, and he is staying up the night before trying to finish it. So no Okada on the show tonight, but John and I are here holding it down. John, how's it going, man?
It is going pretty well. Just another day in quarantine, but other than that, things are going well. We're 2 weeks away from the NFL draft, so it is right around the corner. And some very interesting, not great Bob news just happened that I'm excited to talk about. So
literally, we will talk
literally
about that in a second. Speaking of the NFL draft, man, it's so exciting. Like, the time has come for football news, real life football transactions to take place. We've talked rookies a ton on the show. We have your recent Keyshawn Vaughn video profile up on the YouTube channel, as well as many others. Okada just put Jalen Hurts up there. We've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Justin Jefferson, et cetera, et cetera. So check those out. It's finally going to come to fruition, and we'll finally know what we're going to do with our rookie rankings, which we will release on the site after the NFL draft. And of course, it'll shake up Dynasty ranks. We have so much to talk about in the next month. With the NFL draft coming up, I got to ask John, since normally we watch on ESPN, or maybe you watch on NFL Network, whatever your network of choice is, what are you going to be doing on the Thursday of draft night?
I'm still doing my thing. To me, this is going to be just free entertainment because it's so new. It's so raw that everything about it is going to be different than what we're used to. And they're having to throw it together so fast that it's almost like a guarantee that something's going to go wrong, like technology wise or something. Yeah, something. One of Dave Gettleman's computer folks are going to mess something up and submit the wrong player or something. Like it, I can almost bank on the fact that something really interesting is going to happen. Still, at the end of the day, it's all the same. We get to figure out where these rookies are going, and however that's presented to me, I don't really care as much. I just want to see the information in, real time. And I'm sure that we're going to have the analysts, broadcasting from home and giving all of their takes on it and all that. I just want all the information. And then anything else that comes with it is just going to be a really unique and interesting year. We'll see how this all looks.
Yeah, definitely, man. It's going to be interesting for sure. It's like, it kind of reminds me of like one of those scenarios where when you draft in your fantasy draft and there's a player on the team with the same first initial and the same last name, like D Johnson in the Texans offense, Duke and David, like you select the wrong one. I can see that happening for one of these teams.
Right.
Just so mad. That would be absolutely hilarious if that happened.
Oh, I would die.
What I was trying to allude to, John, and you didn't even pick up on it. I should have told you before I said it. We are planning to do a live broadcast on Thursday for the first round of the NFL draft. I've committed. John has committed. Okada has not committed. We yes, you did.
No, I said I'm in. I didn't say I didn't. I said I'm in. I'm so down. Yeah,
all right, I'm perfect. John is in. Yeah. I'm in. Okada is a question mark as of right now. Hopefully he is in, but it's going to be super exciting because there are tons of mock drafts that have fantasy football relevant names going early in round one, and of course, tons to break down along the way. So we're going to be there to help you do that. More details to come soon. Before we get into the content of tonight's show, remind everyone we are obviously live right now on YouTube. We are also live on Periscope on our Twitter handle at RedshirtsFFPod. You can also follow us on Instagram at RedshirtsFFPod, as well as on Facebook with the same handle. All right, John, let's get over into some of this news, man. I am super excited to talk about this.
Yeah.
Let's just do it.
Yeah.
I got great news, guys.
Oh,
Hey,
news.
Oh boy, Bob, what is happening?
The real BOB
have decided to not only trade away DeAndre Hopkins about a month ago at this point, they have decided to trade for Brandin Cooks, giving away a second-round pick. I believe it's number 57 overall in exchange for Brandin Cooks and a fourth. Yeah. John, your reaction?
They paid more for Brandin Cooks than they got for DeAndre Hopkins. What are you doing? Like, I just don't get it. So I put together this little tweet breaking down these two moves. So here's how it's gone between the two moves combined. The Texans have acquired David Johnson, who's 28 years old with 2 years left on his contracts. And that number was like roughly a $10 million cap hit. Like, this year's 11 and change, and it's 9 and change next year. So average it to like 10 a year for the next 2 years. Brandin Cooks, a 26-year-old who seems to change teams every year. He's got 4 years left on his contract. They acquired the 2020 40th overall pick from the Cardinals. They acquired a 2021 fourth next year and a 2022 fourth 2 years out. They lost DeAndre Hopkins, who's 27 years old. He's only, he's a year older than Brandin Cooks. 3 years left on his contract. They still have to eat a $12.5 million cap hit. They sent a 2024 this year, 131st overall, and 2022nd, 57th overall this year. So this year, they basically swapped seconds to get rid of DeAndre Hopkins and pick up David Johnson and Brandin Cooks. And it just doesn't make a shred of sense to me. Like, listen, I like Brandin Cooks. I think that he's fine. He's a really, really good deep threat when he's healthy. But all that you did was you added another wide receiver in the exact same mold of what you already have on your team. You just went out and got another Will Fuller. You got another speedy deep threat who is not on the field 16 games a year. Like, what are you doing? Keep the second, hold on to 2 second-round draft picks, and get a different wide receiver in this really, really deep wide receiver class that is going to be way cheaper and way younger than what you just went out and paid for. I don't. It hurts my head, Bob. It hurts my head.
You can't even. I've actually had some time to calm down, because when I first saw this news come across, the words that I thought of to describe Bill O'Brien were not kind. I do not understand this move at all. Now, my initial reaction was mostly predicated on the contract situation, which we have since gotten more details about. So Brandin Cooks has been paid a salary bonus because the Rams have held him on the roster this long. So the Rams are paying his salary bonus for this year. They can move on from him. This is the Texans. They can move on from him after this season with a $0 dead cap. So I at least feel a little bit better about that trade from a monetary standpoint. It helps. It's still confusing as hell, because
it's still not great.
Brandin Cooks is one concussion away from retirement in the NFL.
Yeah.
And you also have, like you said, Will Fuller on the opposite side, who we don't even really need to go into. His injury history is extensive. It is risky. I'm concerned. And now you add in a guy who has not been great this past season. Per Evan Silva, 640 yards receiving over Brandin Cooks' last 16 games, only went over 75 yards once in that span. So you have poor play on the field, you have injury risk, and you give away for a bag of peanuts a top 3 wide receiver in this league in DeAndre Hopkins. I don't understand what's going on. I mean, and we just talked about the NFL draft coming up. That second round pick is so valuable.
So loaded.
For a team who needs young playmakers on the offensive side of the ball, and the offensive line is atrocious. I don't know. There's no part of this that makes any sense at all.
No,
and
you're sitting on
two. It's not even a knock on Brandin Cooks as a player. Mm-hmm. I think he's a very good wide receiver. But the injury history, the money with... not great, Bob. Not great.
Not great, Bob. I just... There's a very extensive tweet. I think it was from Field Yates. I retweeted it. Go take a look. Let me scroll and pull real quick. It's going to be right here. At least it should be right here. Maybe not. Anyways, I think it's I think it was from Yates.
I'll try to find it.
Yeah, I got it right here. It's Field Yates. I'm not going to read through the whole thing because it's very extensive. But since August 31st of last year, the Texans have traded away 12 players and picks and acquired 15 players and picks. And it breaks them down on lost and gained. It's 1, 2. So they've lost 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, a third, and a fourth, all in the next 2 years. Those are all 20 and 2021 picks they've traded away. It is mind-boggling. It hurts my heart. This wide receiver class is so good that you could get a real playmaker wide receiver in the second round with that second that you traded away. It makes no sense to me. They need to actually get a general manager. Like, if you still think that Bill O'Brien can coach, which is a completely different topic, you need to get a general manager in that building, like, fast, who actually has experience with roster construction, because this is I can
rogue,
build
man.
my fantasy. He's
rogue.
going completely rogue. I can build my fantasy roster better than he can assemble an NFL team. It doesn't make any sense. It's got to change.
It's frustrating, no doubt about it. Let's talk about the fantasy implications here. We'll start on the Rams side of the ball, because Brandin Cooks got paid a lot of money a couple of years ago by that team, and now he's gone. So we have Cooper Kupp, we have Robert Woods,
Bobby
and 2
Woods.
tight ends in Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee to go along with Jared Goff throwing the football. Let's talk about how that target distribution is going to break out. We started discussing this before we recorded, and you mentioned Robert Woods right away. Tell me about Bob Woods here, why you're so excited.
Well, I love Robert Woods even before this trade. He was someone that I was actively trying to go out and acquire. Unfortunately, I was not able to get any shares because the people that did have him love him. I was hoping there would be someone that viewed him as like a mid to low end wide receiver 2, and I could get some good value there, because Robert Woods seems to always be hanging out between wide receiver like 12 and 16 with some actual wide receiver 1 weeks. Like, he can win you weeks. And now you take Brandin Cooks out of the equation in that target share. Could he be a wide receiver 1 this year? It's entirely possible. Like, if he cracks the top 12, I'm not going to be shocked at all. He has the talent to do it. He's in a offense that I've expressed my own concerns about with Goff's play and decision making, and they no longer have Todd Gurley. So we'll see if they're able to churn it. But I think that you're not going to buy him now. Let me put it that way. After Brandin Cooks left, Robert Woods is now unattainable from a price standpoint. Like, the person that has him is going to see wide receiver 1 upside with Cooks being gone, and you'd have to pay a lot. And I don't know that I want to do that. But if you looked out and you got him in a startup draft, or you're holding him in Dynasty already, you are just like thanking Bill O'Brien so much for freeing up the target share for Robert Woods.
Yeah, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp easily could both finish inside the top 15 at the wide receiver position when it's all said and done in fantasy. And last year with this offense, we saw them make a complete switch. The 2 seasons prior, they were all 11 personnel, which, if you're not familiar, is 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end on the field. And halfway through the year, they said, all right, scrap this. We're going 12 personnel, and it worked. And the offense was more effective. 2 tight ends on the field, 2 wide receivers out wide, and the offense was really churning the ball downfield, getting points. So now that that's happening, I mean, Gerald Everett, Tyler Higbee, of course, Higbee's probably our preference in fantasy, but both probably in week to week are going to have value. Obviously, Higbee more consistent, but it's a complete change and complete shift in what we thought this offense was just 2 seasons ago. On the Texans side of the ball, we talked about it a little bit already, but if you're drafting one of these wide receivers, and I won't be, I'll be honest.
I won't. I'm not touching either.
Okay, in a hypothetical situation, Brandin Cooks or Will Fuller as your preference for Deshaun Watson?
If I'm forced to pick one, I'll take Brandin Cooks.
Forced. Okay.
I will take Brandin Cooks. He is more reliable than Will Fuller is from a health standpoint on the field. I think he does a little bit more than the massive boom bust that Will Fuller does. I think that he has a safer floor if he's healthy than Will Fuller, because Will Fuller, like, it's 4 targets for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns, or it's 4 targets for 1 catch and 16 yards with Will Fuller. Like it is all boom bust. It is like 60-yard touchdown play or nothing when it comes to Will Fuller. And yeah, he's had some games where he's done differently, but that is how I view him. That's what he does most of the time. Brandin Cooks can actually operate an offense a little bit better, and I think will have a higher target share, I think, than Will Fuller if both of them are healthy and on the field. And when Will Fuller is sidelined for a soft tissue injury, because it's going to happen. It happens, it seems like every 2 weeks, it's something new with him. Brandin Cooks could be a target monster if he's on the field. Like he could get a really, really high volume because they don't have, it'd be him and Kenny Stills at that point, and maybe Kiki Kuti. But I think the Brandin Cooks is the play if you're going to go get one. But man, don't invest heavily. Like that is a big risk, big reward, back of your roster bench fill, basically. Like my wide receiver 5 or 6 is what I'd be willing to take Brandin Cooks on.
Yeah, I'm with you. To me, the biggest beneficiary of the situation is Deshaun Watson. I think it helps provide another playmaker, another weapon on the field. But like you said, who is it going to be each week? We don't know. And are these guys going to stay on the field? I don't know. Probably not if we go off the history. And that's a big time concern if you're trying to rely on one of these guys as a wide receiver 2, let alone your fantasy's wide receiver 1. No thank you from the red shirts. Now, I will say in DFS formats, in best ball formats, those guys are super interesting because they are going to boom 4, 5, 6 weeks of the year. But it's just that yo-yo where they're just so up and down. And you don't really know when you should have started them until it's too late and they're on your bench. Right. So I hate those types of players in fantasy. I want that consistency.
I'd rather have a
time improvement for Watson.
Yeah, I'd rather have a safer floor than a higher ceiling majority of the time when it comes to how I go about taking talent. Who I'd have said pick. Like I want someone that's going to have consistent volume and a safer floor instead of, like I said, 150 yards and 2 touchdowns or 1 catch for 16 yards. Like,
yep, definitely. I'm with you on that one. All right, man, let's shift our focus here to the NFL draft a little bit more. And we're going to talk a specific injury. Now, our listeners that have been with us for a while, they know me. They know what I do for my day job. I am a sports physical therapist. If you don't know that, first off, thanks for listening to the show. Second off, we're going to try to use that knowledge a little bit more here in the future as we get ready for the NFL draft, as we get ready for draft season in your fantasy leagues to provide accurate information about injuries. Because, man, it just seems like every week or every other week there's a new blurb about what's going on with Tua's hip, right? Like, is he healthy? Is he not healthy? Is this a risk long-term? Is it fine? I'm going to try to parse this out a little bit, John, and you can kind of chat about my thoughts and maybe what that does for you in your rankings in Superflex leagues.
Yeah, sounds good.
So we had conflicting reports last week. There was news that came out that he had failed 2 physicals for 2 teams drafting inside the top 10 in the NFL draft. Now, we have a quote coming out from his agent, and I'll read the quote. He says, his doctors have been very clear that Tua's health is fine. There's no recurrence that's going to happen here. These health concerns are overblown. So this is kind of a tricky situation, right? Because we're trusting what an agent says versus what previous medical evaluations have said. I'm going to try to split the difference. Here's my thought process on the situation. Tua's hip is legitimately a concern from a long-term perspective. There's no doubt about that. The injury that he suffered is something that doesn't happen on a sports field at all. This is a car accident, freak injury type of situation where the femur, your thigh bone, dislocates out of the socket of your hip joint, causing a break inside the pelvis. And that type of scenario is really scary, actually. It can cause loss of blood to the hip joint. You can have to have basically a hip replacement immediately if they can't get it reduced back into the socket within a few hours. So it really is a serious situation. Fortunately, he did have that replaced, and it got put back in place soon enough. So no blood loss, no long-term huge issue here. But he is going to develop arthritis in that hip at some point in his playing career. And for that reason, Tua is a risky pick for these NFL draft teams because they cannot go and evaluate his hip right now with what's going on with coronavirus. They're basically relying on old reports from months ago to say, yeah, he's probably better, but we don't really know. And so it's such a tricky situation. I've heard a lot of reports coming out that Justin Herbert is a lot of teams' preference at the quarterback position over Tua, simply because they can't test the hip and they don't know. Now, from my perspective, I think Tua is going to be a very, very, very good NFL quarterback, but I don't think we're seeing him play till he's 34, 35, 36, not Tom Brady till he's 42. That's not going to happen for Tua. So it all depends on what an NFL team needs or what they, prioritize essentially. If they want a quarterback to come in and play top level for 8 years, I think they're going to have that, but they're not going to have someone play until he's 38. John, your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting times. If we didn't have the coronavirus situation going on and players were able to get into facilities and meet with teams and meet with doctors and interview and do workouts in person and stuff like that, it would be a really different situation. They'd be able to really get a clear handle on his timeline and how they feel about him and be able to really put together a better game plan. But at this point, it's been 6 weeks since the combine, I think. And I think that's the last report-ish, like actual confirmed being able to meet with doctors that they've had. So it's a little out of date. They don't know. And if they're taking the gamble or if they're going to invest a high draft pick, especially if they're thinking about trading up and taking a quarterback and spending even more capital that way, I don't know that they're going to want to pay up to go get to it, which is something that I've been expecting and saying for a while. Like, that's been basically my mantra, is that someone's going to trade up to either 2 or 3 probably and take Tua. But I don't know anymore if they have to invest all that extra capital. We're talking like multiple firsts is what it would take to move up. Like a Miami would have to give up probably 2 firsts this year and something else in order to come up to the number 2 overall pick. That's a lot to pay if you don't feel comfortable with the health situation there. From a fantasy perspective, I'm not really concerned about his long term because you're going to be probably pretty hard pressed to be in one dynasty league for 20 years. I'm really not all that concerned about it. I'm, with quarterbacks, if I knew for sure that he was going to play into, 38 years old, fantastic. But I don't really care. Like, if he plays for 6 to 8 seasons, that's great. I'm still taking the talent. I'm not moving him down my boards because we don't think that he has a 20-year longevity potential. He's still a top-tier quarterback in this class. I don't know if I have him ahead of Burrow anymore. I don't know if I'd still have him as my quarterback 1 or my 2 in this class, especially if he kind of slips in the draft because of the health issues. That's going to be interesting to see how this all pans out. Maybe someone goes, you know what? We trust it. We're good. The doctor said he's going to be fine. We have enough information that we feel confident that we can go get him and sit him for a year behind someone and bring him in for 2021. We feel good with it. We're going to move up. We're going to take him. We're going to go for it. That could happen. It could also happen that people shy away from him and he slips in the draft. So it's going to be really interesting. I think that's going to be more of we got to kind of wait and see what happens until we can put a good value on Tua, but he's still a very, very gifted athlete, great thrower of the football, very athletic. I still view him as a blue chip fantasy asset. And we'll just kind of see how the draft goes, where he lands and what kind of capital it is.
Absolutely fascinating. If any of our listeners are into little sports wagering, Justin Herbert to be the second quarterback drafted is plus money as of today. That's probably worth some juice if you are.
So can I Venmo you $20? Is that okay? Can you take care of that?
Off the record, yes. You did not hear that. Whoever is regulating these sports books. It's worth it at plus money, in my opinion. We'll find out, but it is super, super intriguing. All right, everyone, we're going to take a quick break. Let everyone know that today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Trophy Smack. TrophySmack.com is the place to go for your fantasy football trophies. These trophies are so legit, and it is Dynasty startup season. You need a league
Yeah, it is.
that has a trophy. If you don't have a trophy for your league, first off, shame on you. Second off, get one from TrophySmack.com. And if you are a commissioner of not one, but 2 Dynasty leagues, this is the deal for you. When you buy a trophy, use code REDSHIRTS. You're going to get a free championship ring with your purchase. So all you have to do now is take one trophy to one league. You get a ring for your second league, and that ring didn't cost you a single thing. So excellent deal. Check them out, TrophySmack.com/redshirts. Use code REDSHIRTS for that free ring at checkout. All right, John, on our last episode, well, 2 episodes ago, actually, because you sat down with one of the Washington Redskins scouts for an interview, which was fantastic, by the way. Lots of good Dynasty information there.
That was fun.
Listeners, if you missed it, check it out. But 2 episodes ago, you, myself, Okada, we talked about our Dynasty rankings at the running back position. We went a little bit long on the podcast, as we tend to do. So we only got through our first 6. This is our order of where we had them. Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Ezekiel Elliott, and Nick Chubb round out our top 6. We're going to jump right into our consensus running back 7 on tonight's show. Mr. Derrick Henry, the 2019 rushing leader. Man, I talked with Sean Davenport a few episodes ago, ESPN NFL Nation reporter for the Titans, and he put it perfectly. He said, man, Derrick Henry is a unicorn. There's no one else like him in this league, and it's so true. The size, the athleticism, he's just a unique running back that typically we don't see anymore. But he is a Dynasty asset. He is going to finish in redraft leagues, I think, as a locked and loaded top 5, top 6 option if things continue the way they did last year. However, I have some reservations about him in Dynasty, mostly just because of the fact that we don't know what the contract situation is.
Right.
Now, there were some rumors coming out a week or 2 ago that they're looking at more of a long-term deal. If they sign that, I will probably move him up. But as of right now, John, you are higher on Derrick Henry than me. Tell me why.
Yeah. I am a big-time Derrick Henry truther. And the unicorn analogy is, I think, the perfect reason why. He's number 6 for me in my running back rankings. I'm the highest of the 3 of us. He is a physical freak. I mean, you don't see running backs of this size, strength, speed, power, agility, all in one packet. Like, you don't see it. He is an absolute mammoth of a man. And he's in the perfect system for him. If he was in a different system that wanted to spread it around and sling it, he'd be lower on my board. But their offense literally is give the ball to Derrick Henry and then go play action off of it. Like, that's pretty much their game plan most of the time. Derrick Henry he is going to see one of the highest workloads in the league from a carries standpoint. Now, I wish he was involved in the passing game. That's non-existent for him. I do wish that he had some chops there, but even just his rushing stats, he's firmly encamped right in this area. And yes, I know that he led the league in rushing yards, and he's not going to do that every year. But even if there's a little bit of a regression from that, I still see him just churning out yardage and touchdowns and getting you big fantasy points time and time again. By the way, he starts slow every single year. If he can actually have a good first month of the season, there won't be a regression. Like, his first 4 to 6 weeks generally are very slow and people start panicking, and then he takes off for the second half of the season, like every single year.
November, December, every year.
Oh my gosh. It's unbelievable to watch. It seems like down the stretch, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because he just doesn't wear down at all and the rest of the league does. I don't know what it is, but the second half of the year, your fantasy playoff run and into the playoffs, he is gold. I mean, he is unbelievable down that stretch. What did he have? 4 games in a row of over 180 rushing yards at the end of the season?
Something ridiculous like that. Yeah.
I think it's like that. Like the first time that's ever happened in NFL history. It's absurd what he can do on the ground, the way that he can churn out yardage, the workload that he's going to see. All that they've done is brought the band back together to do the same thing. They did lose Jack Conklin on the offensive line, and that hurts. I wish that didn't happen, but I'm hoping that they have a plan in place for that and that doesn't impact the running game too much. But they do have everything in place to just keep the same game plan going, play really good defense under Vrabel, and pound the rock. And he's going to be a lock for elite workload. And to me, I have him ranked right around where I expect his floor to be. Like, I don't think he finishes lower than an RB like 6, 7, 8. Like somewhere right in that range is, I think, the lowest that he can finish barring injury. He has the ceiling to finish in the top 2, top 3.
I don't know that he does. And it's mostly because, well, I should preface this. PPR formats, he does not have that ceiling. And it just, it sucks, man. Like, give this guy a screen pass twice a game, it's going to the house. I don't know why they don't use that more often. It literally is unstoppable. But in his time in the NFL, since 2016, he has literally caught a total of 57 footballs. It's just not, it just doesn't have that second level to his ceiling. If they got him 50 targets,
oh my gosh,
he's probably RB3, RB2. Like that's where he would be. But without that, it's just impossible for him to get there. So it's not a knock on him. It's a knock on the usage. But how can you argue with 300 plus touches in that system? Like you said, very, very good offensive line. When I talked with Tehran on that interview, he was telling me, you know, the loss of Conklin is a big deal. He said, but if you go back and look at their directional running, they are a run to the left side team, which is not where Conklin played. So they like to run behind Taylor Lewan on that left side of the line. And I don't think it's a huge downgrade. Certainly you would love to have Conklin there. But regardless, Derrick Henry, man, he's going to be fantastic this season. Like I said, my only reservation is the fact that they don't have him locked up long term. Hopefully that changes, and if it does, my dynasty ranks will as well.
How did he are you looking at his numbers right now? Do you have them pulled up?
I am. They're absolutely ridiculous.
Okay, can you see the playoff games? What were his catches in the playoff games this last year?
Yep. So in the wild card round, he had 1 catch for 22 yards. In the divisional round, he had 2 for 7. And in the championship round, 2 for -8.
That's not good. But the one that stood out to me was the catch against New England. I think that's the 1 for 22. I think it was. It's that thing we're talking about. It's the screen pass. When you get him out in space like that, his size on a corner, like you've got a 5'10", 180-pound corner coming at Derrick Henry at almost like 250 pounds. I know that's a little bit of an exaggeration. Huge man, though. You're talking like a 50 to 60-pound weight advantage for Derrick Henry to the people that are going to be out there trying to stop it. If he just had like 2 to 3 catches a game instead of 1 or 0, his ceiling would just blow up.
Yeah, it's kind of mind-boggling, honestly, because it's not an offense that has like 4 playmakers at the wide receiver position. They have A.J. Brown. Corey Davis to this point hasn't done much. Jonnu Smith is still a question mark, even though we've seen some really exciting things from him in spurts. I don't know why they don't use him more in the passing game. It would be phenomenal for fantasy if they did. But nevertheless, coming in at number 7 in our consensus dynasty ranks, we're on to number 8. Josh Jacobs comes in here at number 8 of the Las Vegas Raiders. For me, I have him at 8. Okada has him at 7. John, you have him at 11. A little bit lower than Okada and I. Why are you down on Jacobs relative to the other 2 of us?
Yeah, it's interesting to me getting down to this back part of the top 12 running backs. I feel like they're all really bunched together. Like Derrick Henry was the last one for me, kind of in a little bit of a tier. Like after Derrick Henry for me, it got a little bit muddy. I kind of shuffled them around a few times. I was kind of moving them back and forth because I can make arguments for and against a lot of them. Jacobs had a great rookie season. Absolutely. I think he's fantastic. He showed really good ability. Similar to what we were just talking about with Derrick Henry, he's not used in the passing game either. And that's a part of his game that is holding his ceiling back. They've said that they want to get him involved in the passing game this offseason. For his fantasy value, I hope so. Like, that would be great. And if he does become a real passing down threat, then yeah, he could absolutely climb up into those mid numbers. But I'm kind of not buying it until I see it. I will say though that they just lost DeAndre Washington to the Chiefs, who was a passing down threat. So maybe there's some merit to it. Maybe it's going to happen. But for me, I think that he's very good. Obviously, I still have him ranked as an RB1 right now. We'll see what happens once the rookies find their new homes. But I just still have some questions about his usage and the team as a whole, because they need to address a lot of things. They don't have playmakers on the outside. They're probably going to address that in the draft. What's going on at quarterback? Is it Derek Carr? Is it Marcus Mariota? So to me, there was just a little bit more questions around him than some of these other guys, but not by much. I still really like Josh Jacobs. Think that he's a really good prospect, had a really good rookie season. And I think that he has the capability of taking a step forward in his sophomore year.
Yeah, I'm a little bit higher on him than you, and it's mostly because of the age. It's mostly because of the draft capital invested in him as a former first-round pick. It's also because I think Derek Carr is the starter again this season. And what does he love to do? Check the football down. Now, the pass concerns are real, the pass catching concerns. And it's not because Josh Jacobs can't do it. He was great in college at doing it at Alabama. But like you said, put up or shut up. Like, give this kid the ball through the air. They don't scheme him that way, the way the Steelers used to do for Le'Veon Bell, or the way the Chargers do for Austin Ekeler. They don't use him that way, and it does knock him a bit from his fantasy production. But elusive, very, very good after contact, really displayed talent on the NFL football field. So lots to like about Josh Jacobs. They did re-sign Jalen Richard, but I choose to think the talent's going to win out here with Josh Jacobs over Jalen Richard in the passing game. And what's actually shocking last year, DeAndre Washington got more targets than Josh Jacobs. Like, how does that happen? I don't understand how that happens. But if they give him the football through the air, certainly his ceiling will become much higher, like a Derrick Henry. I just like him a little bit more, given the youth, given the draft capital there with Jacobs. All right, man, we are on to number 9 in the consensus ranks. It is Joe Mixon for the Cincinnati Bengals. You have him coming in at, let's see, where is it? At number 9. I have him at 7. Okada also at 9. And for Joe Mixon, man, there's a lot to like. And it all has to do with the second half of the season last year. It really was a tale of two seasons for Joe Mixon, man. The first half was atrocious. Before going into their bye week, in redraft leagues, he was on like a second-round pick, a third-round pick in your draft on the waiver wire. He was supposed to be the guy, but an ankle injury slowed him down. The offense was in shambles. I am buying into the fact that what we saw in the second half of the year is more of what Joe Mixon is than what it is not. And if they continue to give him the ball, he will be effective. Obviously, the team is probably going to draft Joe Burrow at the first overall pick in the NFL draft. So is that a quarterback upgrade? Yeah, probably. And let's not forget last year's first-round draft pick, Jonah Williams, on the offensive line, missed all of last year because of injury. So essentially, this team gets 2 first-round picks right into their lineup. So lots to like there with the new-look Bengals, so to speak. Tell me why you're a bit lower than me on Joe Mixon.
I think that it's kind of similar to what I was saying with Josh Jacobs in terms of just the question marks that surround it, because they are getting Jonah Williams back on that offensive line. There's presumed, that they're taking Joe Burrow first overall. But we don't know exactly how a quarterback is going to translate to the NFL level. As much as we like to think that we are perfect talent evaluators and we know exactly how he's going to transition, he could struggle. He could come in and have some growing pains and need to adjust to the speed.
When is the first overall pick ever bust, John?
Never, Jamarcus Russell. It's never happened. So it is possible. Yeah. It happens. It does happen quite a bit. And it's entirely possible. As much as I love Joe Burrow, think that he's incredible, he also was in an insane offense down there in LSU. I'm not saying that made him who he is, but it certainly helped. And I'm still curious to see how he's going to translate. Now, he could come in and have a fantastic rookie season and everything looks great. And Joe Mixon is absolutely balling out. And that offense is putting up twice as many points as they were last year. Entirely possible. That could happen. It could also be a learning curve for Joe Burrow. Two Joes. And
two Joes. Too many Joes.
Two Joes. Yep. It could be a learning curve for him. He could need to do some adjusting to the NFL game and the speed of it. Going to be playing in the AFC North with some really good defenses. It could be a little bit of a challenge. So I still like Joe Mixon. I think he's a very talented running back. Let me clarify. I like the fantasy football player, Joe Mixon.
Yes, of course.
Yes. He is very talented, and if everything comes together very well, he could have a very, very strong RB1 season. If it doesn't come together well, I think that his floor is the lowest of the running backs that we've talked about. So that's why I have him a little bit lower.
I think that's fair. I think that is fair to say his floor is lower because, like you were saying, while we're super excited about the changes coming in Cincinnati and potentially a culture shift, so to speak, they had a new head coach last year in Zach Taylor. Still not sure what he'll bring long term, but having a new quarterback, having a new face of the franchise, obviously AJ Green back again. Like, there's a lot to like, and there's a lot of narrative. But what happened with the Cleveland Browns last year, right? So there is a floor where this Bengals team is still not good, which will affect Mixon in a negative way from a scoring opportunity. If they give him the ball, though, even last year where that offense was atrocious, I mean, you just look at his game logs, like from weeks 1 to 8, running back 33 in fantasy. Here are his attempts: 6, 11, 15, 15, 19, 8, 10, 17. And then when you look at the second half of the year, 30 rush attempts, 15, 18, 19, 23, 25, 21, 26. So the only difference is they gave him the football, and good things happen. So I think that it doesn't take
I didn't know he had
a
30
rocket
carries
scientist.
in the game.
Yeah. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at that and say, oh, if we give him the ball, good things happen. So hopefully that happens. Again, you have to assume rational coaching, which can get you in trouble at times, to say the least.
Think about some of the pass rushers. Think about some of the pass rushers in that division, though. Watt, they just got the Ravens just got Calais Campbell to load up there. The Browns have Myles Garrett. Like, there is some serious pass rush in the AFC North that he's going to have to learn very quickly. And I'm concerned a little bit about that when it comes to a development standpoint, because if he's not well protected, the last thing you want is a rookie coming in and having his confidence shaken. Like, you don't want him to come in and have a couple really bad games and start panicking and speeding up his timing and making bad decisions. So I do have some concern about that. We'll see.
Jonah Williams or Joe Burrow?
I'm talking about Burrow. Like, if he's back there and he doesn't feel like he has the protection, and you've got some all-pro defensive linemen in that division, if it starts speeding up his clock too much and he starts making bad decisions, rushes into some throws some interceptions, starts seeing his confidence like really dip, that can just be kind of hard to overcome for a rookie quarterback. So I'm not saying I don't love Joe Burrow. I do. The season that he just put up was absolutely lights out. He protects the ball very well. He holds it with two hands all the time. I love it. Like, he's a very, very good prospect, but it's just hasn't been proven yet. So I have the question until I see it. Like, if he comes in and he balls out for the first month, fantastic. I will be so happy for him and so happy for Cincinnati to have another franchise quarterback. Great. But I just kind of pump the brake, just calm down a little bit. Like, give the kid some time to develop into the league.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, rookie growing pains are real for, honestly, every rookie NFL quarterback for the most part. It's not the normal to come in and produce top level production right away. It's just not. So yeah, that could definitely limit Joe Mixon's upside if they don't get into the red zone enough. For example, if they turn the ball over too much, those kind of things. So definitely fair points. We're on to number 10 in the consensus ranks, a guy who scored 19 touchdowns last year. Your running back 2 in fantasy last year, Aaron Jones, coming in at 10. John has him all the way up at 7. Okada and I both have him at 10 in our ranks. All right, John, sell me on it. Why is he at 7 versus lower down at 10 where we have him?
Oh, number 2 in fantasy football and number 1 in my heart, Mr. Aaron Jones.
I love Aaron Jones, man.
I love Aaron Jones so much. Man, he's just a beast. Now, I think the thing that everyone goes to is like an immediate call to arms on touchdown regression. Like for the number of touchdowns that he scored, because wasn't it 22 from scrimmage? Because he had like 3 receiving as well, I think.
I thought it was 19 total, but I'll look it up real quick while you talk.
Okay. A lot, regardless. He scored a lot of touchdowns. And everyone thinks that means that automatically he needs to regress. And it's entirely possible that he does. In fact, it's likely that he does. I don't think he scores upwards of 20 touchdowns again. But even if that does take a little bit of a step down, even if he's putting up, I don't know, let's call it 12 instead, he's still firmly encamped as a running back 1. Like I looked at the numbers from last year, and I think if he cut his, I'm trying to remember offhand, so don't quote me on these numbers exactly, but I think if he cut his touchdown total in half next season in full PPR, he still would have been running back 11, and that's cutting it in half. So yes, those numbers are probably going to take a step down. But also there were times last year where they wanted to get Jamal Williams involved for some reason. And when Aaron Jones was the guy and given that opportunity, he was that dude. Like he was that guy in the NFL that no one wanted to face. The game against Dallas where he's literally waving at the defender as he's strolling into the end zone. Like,
I love it.
Man, swag. It was so good. I loved the energy. It was so awesome. He's fantastic. He's crazy efficient. Did you know that Derrick Henry is not the best running back up the middle? You want to know who is? It's Aaron Jones from a yard per carry standpoint, right up the gut. And some of that's offensive line for sure, but he also breaks a lot of tackles and he hits it with freaking authority like every time. He does not like dance around and wait. He's like, I'm going to slam in to get 4 or 5 yards instead of dancing and try to hit it for 20 or lose 5. Like it's great. He's so efficient. So for me, nothing's changing in that offense other than maybe bringing in a better pass catcher to go opposite Davante Adams. But I still think that Aaron Jones is going to see really heavy workload. I still think that he's going to be a touchdown machine. I think that they really enjoy giving him the ball in the red zone and letting him punch it in. So I think that everything is set up for him to come back and have another really strong season. And some players are just really good at scoring touchdowns. Like that does happen. Not everyone has to regress massively to the average. Like some guys are just really, really good at scoring touchdowns. Aaron Jones in his career has been really, really good at scoring touchdowns. So I don't think he gets the same amount, but I mean, he could be on tap for another 15 touchdown season. Like I don't see why that's not in the realm of possibility. So I just love him as a runner. I love the system that he's in for him. I think that he started to really earn, LaFleur's trust as the season went on. I expect him to be featured. Jamal Williams will still be involved. Every team has a second running back that's involved other than Tennessee. And even still, I think that Aaron Jones is in line to just ball out again.
Yeah, I think you made a lot of great points there. I definitely like Aaron Jones' game. I love the way he plays. He's good in all facets and all areas of the field. He's not one-dimensional at all. So we love that out of our running backs. But, Jamal Williams is not going away. And the quotes from LaFleur, I don't know why, but they just keep talking about running back by committee, running back by committee. We need to bring someone in to complement these guys. No, you don't. You just need to give Aaron Jones the ball. And from an NFL perspective, real life, of course, depth is very good. Yeah. You want to have depth on your running back roster. But as far as giving the other running backs touches, I don't know, man. I don't trust it. I don't like hearing that a ton. And the other factor is Aaron Rodgers only threw 26 touchdowns last year, which is not necessarily his normal. Now, is this Aaron Rodgers potentially starting to decline later in his career? I'm not sure. Or was it the fact that Davante Adams was out for half the season last year with turf toe? Right. And if Davante Adams comes right back in and he's 100% healthy, which I think he will be,
Same.
Does he score his 12, 13 touchdowns receiving that he's become accustomed to having with Aaron Rodgers in the red zone? So I think the argument for Aaron Jones is just a freaking good running back is real, and I agree with it. I just don't know, like you said, the touchdowns to support it. 19 is a huge outlier. I did a little bit of research just kind of looking at other running backs and their rushing attempts inside the 10-yard line and what they scored as far as touchdowns. All 4 of these players had 11 touchdowns from rushing inside the 10-yard line. Here's the attempts. Zeke had 31. Dalvin had 31. Todd Gurley had 29. Aaron Jones had 19. And all 4 of these players had 11 rushing touchdowns. So looking at law of averages, looking at the statistical standpoint of it, he is going to regress, in my opinion. I don't know how much. I don't know if it's 3 touchdowns, which if that's the case, who cares? If it's 9 touchdowns, then that's a bigger deal. So I'm just a little bit hesitant on him in a dynasty format, given those concerns and given the contract. He is only under contract this season. We're not sure what the long-term outlook is for Jones, but in redraft, I'm in on Aaron Jones. On to number 11. It's my turn on the hot seat. Miles Sanders comes in at number 11.
All right.
Consensus ranks. I have him all the way up at 11. John and Okada have him at 14. And the first concern with Miles Sanders. Well, yeah, the Eagles are the best team in the NFL. Of course, their players, including Alshon Jeffrey, are going to be inside my top 10. No.
Totally.
With Miles Sanders, man.
JK, hot take.
There's a lot of concern about Doug Peterson with his running back by committee, which I agree. That's always been his mantra. That's always been his way. But here's the other running backs on the roster. Boston Scott. So I don't know, man. maybe Boston Scott gets 7, 8, 9, 10 touches a game. And if so, fine. Miles Sanders is going to get 16 to 18, and that'll work, especially in PPR formats. The guy was an absolute monster down the stretch last year. Now, did a lot of that passing production come because Greg Ward was their wide receiver 1? Yes, it did. But Alshon Jeffrey is not going to be 100% at any point this season. His Liz Frank surgery came at the end of the year, and those take at least a year to get back to full strength. So Alshon Jeffrey is not going to be a major factor this season. The team did just lose Nelson Aguilar. Maybe that's a benefit. I don't know. But right now we're looking at a wide receiver depth chart that is still absolutely wide open, and they probably will address it in the draft. The mock of the week tends to be Justin Jefferson to the Eagles at 21.
And I said that in my video on Justin Jefferson. I would love that fit.
Definitely. So, he's still a young running back. He's good. He can catch the football. A very good offensive line. If they don't bring any other running back in to compete with those 2 guys that's notable, then Miles Sanders is going to lead the backfield, and it's a good offense. So that's where I'm at with Miles Sanders. Maybe I'm a little aggressive with my 11 rank. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Yeah, I really like Miles Sanders. I think that he did a great job down the stretch, but I almost think that it was out of necessity. Like you were saying, they didn't have anything else. Everyone on that team was hurt down the stretch. They had nothing going. I don't think there's any chance that the Eagles leave this draft without another running back. I'm not saying this can be the first round pick, but I'm looking at their picks right now. They have a first, a second, a third, and then they have 3 fourth round picks. And in this running back class, there's going to be some talented dudes in the 4th. Like there are going to be some guys there that can really contribute, that can get it done. You know how much I love Keyshawn Vaughn. Keyshawn Vaughn might last until the 4th. If he's sitting there and they decide to invest in Keyshawn Vaughn to bring in another running back into that room, because like you said, they've only got one guy behind him that hasn't proven to do anything, then I would be really concerned about that going to a Peterson timeshare like he tends to enjoy doing. So I still think he's a very good running back. I have my concerns about his workload because it felt like he kind of only got it because Jordan Howard was hurt. And then Jordan Howard now has been traded or signed. I can't remember if he's a free agent. He's now in Miami.
He was a free agent.
Okay. So he's now in Miami, which is good for them. They needed a veteran running back in that room. Great signing for them. They'll probably bring in a rookie also, and cool. Good. But I think that they're going to address running back. I think that it's going to be someone that might really push Miles Sanders, and Miles Sanders might be in more of a timeshare than people want him to be. It could be like a couple years ago, free Aaron Jones up in Green Bay. It might be like that, like free Miles Sanders, please, like turn him loose. But it might be what they decide to do to try and keep everyone healthy. And they could be looking at bringing in another running back that takes 30 to 40% of the load. So I'm curious to see how that plays out in the draft. If they don't take anyone, I might bump them up a couple spots. I just think that it's going to happen. So
yeah, they will.
That's kind of where I'm at.
They're going to take someone. They have.
Yeah,
to.
They need depth. They have to get more bodies.
Their depth chart right now is Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, and Elijah Holyfield.
Hey, Holyfield, how you doing?
They have to draft someone. So I'm not saying they won't. They're going to. Yep. But, it depends. If they take someone in the 6th round, great. Miles Sanders is going to get this gig and he's going to run away with it. If it's someone in the 3rd round or the 4th, then, yeah, maybe there's a concern that he splits more work. So we're going to find out in 2 weeks, and we're going to know a lot more about these dynasty ranks here very soon. All right, man, we are on to number 12 in our top 12 rankings. The final one, Austin Ekeler. What a season for him.
Give me that dude.
My gosh, fantastic season for him. It just, what is there to say? Everything that they needed him to be, he was without Melvin Gordon in the lineup. And even when Melvin Gordon came back, Austin Ekeler was more of a fantasy-friendly option. He comes in at 12 for me, 12 for Okada, and 8 for you. Now, is part of this excitement the contract? Because he did sign a very nice deal as a restricted free agent to stay with the Chargers.
Part of that I like. Yeah, it was good for them to invest. By the way, this could not have gone worse for Melvin Gordon last year. Yeah. I mean, dude, he got the worst advice from his camp. Like, that was absolutely terrible advice. He decides to hold out, and then Austin Ekeler goes out there. And from a fantasy perspective, he was on pace to be the running back two behind only Christian McCaffrey. And honestly, it was close. Like, he was putting up numbers without Melvin Gordon. He's a PPR monster. Everything he does basically is through the air. He's basically a receiver out of the backfield, and he's pretty good at running the ball too. So to me, he's such an integral part of that offense. They did want to keep him around. It was a very kind of team-friendly deal. Like, it was a good deal for an unrestricted free agent. Like, good for him. He earned it and he got a contract, and that's fantastic. He was undrafted. So for him to get that and work and earn it, good for him. Fantastic. But it was like comparable to Giovanni Bernard's contract. It's not like they paid this guy a ton of money, but it's a nice contract. It's enough for them to keep him there and invest in him. And I think he's their guy, but also not have to overpay at the running back position like we see a lot of other teams do. It was a great fit. It worked out really well for both of them. They're going to be having a change at quarterback this season. Maybe it's Tyrod Taylor. Maybe it's a rookie, Justin Herbert. We're not really sure, but a pass-catching running back is a great friend to a new quarterback. Like, having that security blanket, that check down, designed passes that are out quick to a running back, all of that just spells more of the same, more success for me for Austin Ekeler. To be heavily utilized and be a great value. I mean, he's going in dynasty startups right now. Where you see, isn't it like 3rd, 4th, something like that? 3rd, 4th round that we're seeing him go.
I think it depends on the drafts. I think industry leagues, like we play in one with a bunch of other analysts, and
they're all high on him.
He went pretty high, yeah. But in a more casual league, I think you're right. I think he's going somewhere around 3rd, 4th.
Looks like he went at the 3.03 in our Patreon league.
Yep.
So someone's been listening to me. But Austin Ekeler, I think, is just a great fit for today's NFL. He's what you want in an NFL running back. His ability out of the backfield to catch, to line up out wide, to split him out all over the place, get him the ball quickly in space. is so good. He's so electric at it. And like I said, he was on pace to be the running back too. And I don't know if they're going to add more depth behind Justin Jackson, but if that's it, that's there, like, dude, I don't see why it's outlandish to say that he could have a top 5 season. Like, it could absolutely be the case. Now, I'm not putting him there in the top 5, but I think that he's a locked and loaded mid RB1 for me.
Yeah. You know, the ceiling, they top a pass catching standpoint, not because of anything that has to do with his talent. Phillip Rivers, man, he is the king of the check down at this stage of his career. Every season that he gets older, more of a market share goes to the running back position as a whole every single season. And it's part of the reason that I'm getting really excited actually about Marlon Mack in redraft leagues. But back to Austin Ekeler, like, if that's not there, that is a huge portion of his workload. That is a huge portion of his production. Tyrod, let's say he starts 6 games, let's say he starts 7 games, something like that, before the rookie comes in and takes over. You know, what will he get from Tyrod? He hasn't checked the ball down a lot in his career, going back to his days at Buffalo as a starter and even in Cleveland. So, yeah, I don't know. If he doesn't get that, then that's a concern. I still love the player. I still think he's very talented. I still think he's very good. I just traded for him in one of our Dynasty leagues that we play in together, so I'm definitely a fan of this guy. I just don't think that last year is likely to happen again this season with the quarterback change there. That's why I have him a little bit lower, but like I said, I have him on my Dynasty roster. I'm happy to have him on my Dynasty roster. Still very excited about Austin Ekeler.
If you can get him as your second running back in a Dynasty startup right now, holy cow, that is so juicy. If you can pair him up, like get him at the early to mid third, and you know, that would be insane. That's just incredible value.
Definitely. And with the pass catching ability, a really solid floor to go as your running back too. So lots to like with Ekeler, lots to like with all these guys. Honestly, I'd be happy to have any one of these guys on my roster. Fantastic options in fantasy, in Dynasty. All right, John, we have said it all, man. We have gone all the way down from number 1 to 12 in our Dynasty ranks. If you want more details on those or to look at our running backs that aren't inside our top 12, head on over to the website, redshirtsfantasyfootball.com. If you're looking for even more fantasy football content, patreon.com/redshirtspod is the place to go. We had like 8 or 9 new patrons join this week, man. It was so fun.
So awesome.
Started a new Dynasty League. I know there's more players in there that want to start another Dynasty League. So if you're looking to start one with good people who know what they're doing, that's the place to go. So check that out. You get bonus podcasts, access to the Slack channel, so much more. Check it out.
And remember, we have
our Patreon site.
A lot of fun coming for the NFL draft. We're going to be going live streaming for that night. This is a fantasy supplement to what the NFL draft is going to be putting out. You're going to have them talking about heavy-legged waist spenders and all that stuff. We're going to be talking about the fantasy impact of where these players are going in the first round. So do both. Put NFL Network or ESPN on your TV and mute them and listen to us talk about the fantasy implications.
Absolutely. We'll have more details for you guys here in the next couple of days about that, but John and I are confirmed. We will peer pressure Okada to also be confirmed soon enough. All right, John, let the people know where they can find you.
At Dynasty Beard on Twitter. That's the best place. I spend far too much time on there, so please come talk with me and talk about fantasy football.
Absolutely. You can find Okada at Matt Okada. I am at The Fantasy PT. The show account is at RedShirtsFFPod. Until next time, we are the Red Shirts.